Mm. Well, if that's the case. All right, y'all. Check that out. I like it. A little Christmas. Yeah. Actually. We love it. We love it. Okay. Cool. Now we got our little Christmas stuff going on. So you know what that means. Oh, sugar. We should probably not have that on right now. That's probably. I didn't even think about that. I was just having some fun. Yes. Mm. There we go. Shall we fix what my streaming is? Chatting. All right, continues. All right. Hello, everybody. Let's do one more thing. I just want to see what's going on. we'll get going on this and stuff, and once we've, well, figure it all out. I want to make sure everything's going smooth. So apparently, I should be streaming. You know what? We'll just. And we're back. All right. Why does it say upcoming? It says connected. Let's see. If it's over here, we'll be okay. I'll just send that. Yep, it's there. All right, cool. We'll just send that to mom. Let's see. All right, guys. So this is what's the purpose of this is to well, I'm hoping, I don't know, one, I can, you know, do something with this, I guess. I wish I could, no, not found. Of course, not found. Let's load the image. It's not going to load. All right, well, whatever. Let's just do it. Okay, so this is going to, I'm going to read this book for you all. Obviously, if you don't know what it is, here's the book. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It is in Project Gutenberg, which is free. So, you know, don't come at me. You know what would be good though? Let's see. I wonder if, let's see. We'll search and go like this. This is royalty free. Watch just tell me to stand. I don't know if we'll be doing that. All right, never mind. We'll just go. We'll just go with it. Wish I could say there was more, but here we go. Now live. All right. Stave 1, or as lots of people like to call it, Chapter 1, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his the register of his burial was signed by a clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. I'm sorry. This is why I'm practicing. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the smile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary, like legatee, his sole friend and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, the solemnist and solemnized. What? Undoubted bargain. Interesting. Interesting. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I start from. There's no doubt that Marley was dead. If you guys haven't figured it out, Marley's dead. This must be distinctly understood, and nothing wonderful can come of the story I'm going to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there'd be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night, in an easterly wind, upon his own ramparts, than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot. Say, St. Paul's churchyard, for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. Scrooge never painted out Marley's name, never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people knew the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was tight-fisted He was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge! A squeezing, wrenched, grasping, scraping, clutching, tedious old sinner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster, the cold within him froze. His old features nipped, his pointed nose, shriveled his cheeks, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and on his wary chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. His ice, he iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. Let me try that again. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chilled him, no wind that blew was bitter than he, no felling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less open to entry. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come see me?" No beggars employed him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." But what did Scrooge care? Nothing, right? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Was that the knowing ones called nuts to Scrooge? Once upon a time. I don't know why I said it like that. Try it again. Once upon a time. All of the good days in the year on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside going wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. Winter weather, yeah. It had not been light at all. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighboring offices like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that, although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. To see the dinging cold come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller than it looked, like 1 coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with a shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. "Oh, Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheery voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him, and so quickly that it was the first intimation that he had of his approach. Well, let me try that again. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that his first intimation, yeah, I go. That this was the first intimation he had of his approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. Christmas? A humbug? Uncle! Said Scrooge's nephew. You don't mean that, I'm sure. I do, said Scrooge. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough. Come then, returned the nephew gaily. What right have you to be dismissal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough. Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said, Bah! again, and followed her with, Humbug! Don't be cross, uncle, said the nephew. What else can I be? Returned the uncle. When I live in such a world of fools as this Merry Christmas out upon Merry Christmas. What Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my wheels, said Scrooge indignantly, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should. Uncle, pleaded the nephew. Nephew, returned the uncle, keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine. Keep it? Repeated Scrooge's nephew. But you don't keep it. Let me leave it alone then, said Scrooge. Much good it has ever done you. There are many things from which I might have derived good by which I have not profited. I dare say, returned the nephew, Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come around, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name, and origin. If anything belonging to it can be apart from that as a good time, a kind, forgivable, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of, in a long calendar of the year, when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on another journey. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good, and I say, God bless it. The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded, becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety. He poked the fire and extinguished the last frail spark forever. Let me hear another sound from you, said Scrooge, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir, he added, turning to his nephew. I wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, uncle. Come. Dine with us tomorrow, Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression and said that he would see him in that extremely first. But why? Cried Scrooge's nephew. Why? Why did you get married? Said Scrooge. Because I fell in love. Because you fell in love, growled Scrooge, as if it were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon. Ooh, he said it. Nay, uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it a reason for not coming now? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I want nothing more from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. Oh, he's really laying it on, isn't he? That's just mean. I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had a quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, uncle. Good afternoon, said Scrooge, and a Happy New Year. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without an angry word. Notwithstanding, he stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk with 15 shillings a week and a wife and a family talking about Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let two other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands and bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe, said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead for this seventh. Try it again. Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years, Scrooge replied. He died 7 years ago this very night. We have no doubt about this liberality is very well represented by his surviving partner, said the gentleman present, his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been two kindred spirits at the ominous word liberality. Scrooge frowned. Liberality? Interesting. Man, I do this. I'm going to have to start figuring out how to talk and speak words. Words are hard. Shook his head and handed his credentials back. This festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, taking upon a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provisions for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly. At the present time, many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts. Are there no prisons? Asked Scrooge. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workers? Demanded Scrooge. Are they still in operation? They are, still, returned the gentleman. I wish I could say that they were not. The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor then, said Scrooge. Both very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid, from what you said at first, that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course, said Scrooge. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that the scarcely furnished Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude, returned the gentleman, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, a means of warmth. We choose this time because it is the time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone, said Scrooge. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I do not make merry myself at Christmas. I cannot afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it, and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that. But you might know it, observed the gentleman. It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not interfere with other people. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labors with an improved opinion of himself and in more fictitious temper than was usually with him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened so that people ran about with flaring lamps, proffering their services to go before horse and carriages and conduct them on their own way. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping slyly down at Scrooge out of the Gothic window in the wall became invisible and struck the hours and quarts in the clouds with trem- tremulous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head up there. Cold became intense in the main street at the corner of the court. Some laborers were repairing the gas pipes and had lighted a great fire in a brazier around which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands, winking their eyes before the blaze and rupture. The water plug beneath left in solitude, its overflowing suddenly congealed and turned to misanthropic ice. The brightness of the shops, where holly springs and berries crackled in the lamps' heat of the windows, made pale faces ruddy as they passed. Poulterers and grocers' trades became a splendid joke, a glorious pageant with which it was next to impossible to believe that such dull principles had bargain and sale had anything to do. The Lord Mayor, in the stronghold of the mighty mansion house, gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as a Lord Mayor's house should, and even the little tailor, whom he had fined 5 shillings on the previous Monday for being drunk and bloody thirsty in the streets, stirred up tomorrow's pudding in his garret, while his lean wife and the baby sailed out to buy the beef. Foggier yet and colder. Piercing, searching, biting, cold. If the good St. Dunstan had but nipped the evil spirit's nose with touch of such weather as that, instead of using his familiar weapons, then indeed he would have roared to lusty purpose. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and nimbled by the hungry cold as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol, but at the first sound of "God bless ye, merry gentlemen, may nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy and action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole into the fog and even more congealed frost. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. With an evil will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tactfully admitted the fact that the exploded clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put his hat on. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," said Scrooge. "If quite convenient, sir." "It's not convenient," said Scrooge, "and it's not fair. If I was to stop half-crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound." The clerk smiled faintly. And yet," said Scrooge, "you don't think me ill when I pay a day's wage for no work." The clerk observed that it was only once a year, "A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December," said Scrooge, buttoning his great coat to the chin. "But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning." The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide on the cornhill at the end of the lane 20 times in honor of it being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt to play at Blind Man's Bluff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which once belonged to his deceased partner, that were a gloomy suit of rooms in a lowering pile of building up yard, where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there. Fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide and seek with other houses, and having forgotten the way out. It was old enough now and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge. The other rooms being all let out as offices, The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of the house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in mournful meditation on the threshold. Now, in fact, that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it, night and morning, during his whole residence in the place. Also, that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London, even including, which is a bold word, to cooperation, alderman, and livery. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought of Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he could, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face was not in penetrable shadow, as the other objectives in the yard were, but had dismal light about it like a bad lobster in dark cellar. It was not angry or ferocious, but looking at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly speech spectacles turned up on its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and, though the eyes were wide, they were perfectly motionless. That and its livid color made it horrible, but its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked fixedly at the phenomenon, and then it was a knocker again. To say that he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of a terrible situation, that which it had been stranger from infancy, would be untrue. But he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, walked in, and lit his candle. He did pause, with a moment's irresolution, before the shut door, and he did look cautiously behind the first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtails sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on. So he said, "Pooh pooh," and closed it with a bang. I don't know why I said pooh pooh. That seems weird. The sound resounded through the lighthouse like thunder. Every room above, every cask in the wine merchant's cellar below, appeared to have separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly, too, trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six up a good old flight of stairs, and through a bad young Act of Parliament, but I mean to say you might have got a hearse up that staircase and taken it broadwise, with the splinter bar towards the wall, and the door towards the balustrades, and done it easy. There was plenty of width for that, and room to spare, which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. Half a dozen gas lamps out in the street wouldn't have lighted the entry too well. So you may suppose that it was pretty dark with Scrooge's dip. Interesting. Up Scrooge went, not caring about a button for that. Darkness is cheap. Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see all was right. He had just enough recollection. Oh my gosh. Try it again. He had just enough recollection. Hold on. Drink. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofas, a small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and the little saucepan of gruel. Scrooge had a cold in his head, upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing room gown, which was hung up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual. Old fire guard, old shoes, two fish baskets, washing stand and on three legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in, double locked himself in, which was not his custom, thus securing against surprise. He took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed, nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it before he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago and paved all around with quaint Dutch tiles, designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Cain's and Abel's, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds like feather buds, Abraham's, Belsar's, apostles putting off to sea in butter boats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts, and yet that face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like an ancient prophet's road and swallowed up the whole. If each smooth tile had been blank at first, with power to shape some picture on its surface from the joined fragments of his thoughts, there would have been a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug," Scrooge said, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room, and communicated for some purpose now forgotten, with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with great and strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung softly in the outset, that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly. So did every bell in the house. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "Oh, wait. Nah, miss him. Stand by, going back." This might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun together. They were succeeded by clanking noises deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "Still humbug. It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His color changed, though, when without a pause it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, "I know him! Marley's ghost!" and fell again. The same face, the very same. Marley in his pigtails, usual waistcoats, tights, and boots, the tassel on the latter bristling like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the two buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now, though he looked the phantom through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked it the very texture of the folded kerchief about his head and chin, which wrapped he had not observed before. He was still incredulous and fought against his senses. How now? Said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. What do you want with me? Much. Marley's voice, no doubt about it. Who are you? Ask me who I was. Who were you then? Said Scrooge, raising his voice. You particular, for a shade. He was going to say, to a shade, but substituted this as more appropriate. In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Can you sit down? Asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. I can. Do it then. Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace as if he were quite used to it. You don't believe in me, observed the ghost. I don't, said Scrooge. What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your own senses? I don't know, said Scrooge. Why do you doubt your senses? Because, said Scrooge, the little thing affects them. Slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. To sit staring at those fixed, glazed eyes in silence for a moment would play. Scrooge felt the very deuce with him. That's an interesting thing. The very deuce with him? There was something very awful, too, in the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of his own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case. For though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated as if by hot vapor from an oven. You see this toothpick? Said Scrooge, returning quietly to the charge for the reason just assigned, and wished through it were only for a second to divert the vision's stony gaze from himself. I do, replied the ghost. You're not looking at it, said Scrooge. But I see it, said the ghost, notwithstanding. Well, returned Scrooge, I have but to swallow this and be, for the rest of my days, persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you, humbug! At this, the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chains with such dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage around his neck. Stand by. Going on a break. All right, sorry about that. Here we go. Where were we? Okay. But I see it. Well, Scrooge returned. After what follows. And there's Scrooge fell upon. Yeah, okay. So we've got chains rattling, him getting freaked the F out. Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands before his face. Mercy, he said. Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Man of the worldly mind, replied the ghost. Do you believe in me or not? I do, said Scrooge, I must. But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me? It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirits within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turned into happiness. Again the spectre raised a cry and shook his chain and wrung his shadowy hands. You are fettered, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wrote it. I wore it. Is the pattern strange to you? Scrooge trembled one more. Or would you know, pursued the ghost, the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full, as heavy, and as long as the 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain. Scrooge glanced about him on the floor in expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing. Jacob, he said importantly. Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give, the ghost replied. It comes from other regions, Ebenezer Scrooge, and it's conveyed by other ministers to other kinds of men. Nor can I tell you what I would. A very little more is all permitted to me. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger any more. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me. It was habit with Scrooge, whenever he became thoughtful, to put his hands into his breech pockets. Pondering on what the ghost had said, he did so now, but without lifting his eyes up his eyes, or getting off his knees. You must be very slow about it, Jacob, Scrooge observed in a businesslike manner through humility and indifference. Slow? The ghost whispered. 7 years dead, mused Scrooge. And traveling all the time? The whole time, said the ghost. No rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse. You travel fast? Said Scrooge. On the wings of the wind, replied the ghost. You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years, said Scrooge. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry and clanked his chain so hideously and deadly in the deadly silence of the night that the ward would have been justified in indicting it for a nuisance. Oh, captive bound in double iron, cried the phantom, not to know the ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures, for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is my God, why am I trying to read so fast? Let me try this again. Oh, captive bound in double iron, cried the phantom, not to know the ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures, for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit work kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know the space of regret can make amends for one's life opportunities misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I. But you were always good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply himself. Business! Cried the ghost, wringing its hands. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all of my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Held up its chains at arm's length, as if it were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. At this time of the rolling year, the spectre said, I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down, never raised them to that blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode, where there are no poor homes to which its light could have conducted me? Scrooge was very dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. Hear me, cried the ghost. My time is nearly gone. I will, said Scrooge, but don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray. How is it that I appear before you in a shape that you can see? I may not tell. I have sat invisibly beside you many and many a day. It was not an agreeable idea, Scrooge shivered, and wiped the perspiration from his brow. That is no light part of my penance, pursued the ghost. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. You were always a good friend to me, said Scrooge. Thank ye. You will be haunted, resumed the ghost, by 3 spirits. Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as the ghost had done. Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob? He demanded in a faltering voice. It is. I think I'd rather not, said Scrooge. Without their visits, said the ghost, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, and when the bell tolls 1. Could I not take them all at once and have it over with, Jacob? Hinted Scrooge. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us. When it said these words, the spectre took its wrap from the table, bound it around its head as before. Scrooge knew this by the sound of its teeth made when the jaws were brought together by the bandage. He ventured to raise his eyes again and found his supernatural visitor confronting him in an erect attitude, with its chains wound over and about its arm. The apparition walked backward from him, and at the very step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which it did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up his hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped. Not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand, he became sensible and confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailing inaccessibly, sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dredge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window. Desperate in his curiosity, he looked out. The air was filled with phantoms wandering hither and thither in restless haste and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty of governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had quite been quite familiar with one old ghost in the white waistcoat with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant, whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was clear. All was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever. Whether these creatures faded into mist or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, and as he locked it with his hands and the bolts were undisturbed, he tried to say, "Humbug," but stopped at the first syllable. And being from the emotions he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or the glimpses of invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon an instant. All right, we have come to the end of chapter 1. I will leave that there. We will come back tomorrow and we'll read some more. So, if you're so inclined and you're okay with this voice and my screw ups and all that stuff, again, like I said, just practicing for, trying to get, trying to figure something out. Lose your job and you got to figure something. So we'll be back for chapter 2. But if you want to stick around, I think we're just going to start up some golf and go through some stuff. But until then, boom. All right. Cool. Thanks, Energy. Really do appreciate it. Yeah. No, I did that. Yeah. That's jobs. Mm, mm. Promotion. I got fired. Wow. I guess you could say that's a promotion. Is that what I think I said? Hmm. See what jobs they've got going on. Director of Studio and Creative Engagement, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Hmm. Hmm. Just once. Oh, I guess I could do. Yes. Boom. Yes. Goodbye. All right. Hmm. Will do. I want this. Let's go with this one. Yes. E-drive. Cancel. Ah, perfect. Okay. Christmas trees. Mm-hmm. This one. And where'd you go? Ermagerd. This one. Where is it? That one. All right. It ain't. That should be enough. Let's do this. Let's do this. Duplicate. Bear with me. We're gonna try to Christmas up the place. First things first. This needs to go away. No. Oh. All right. And then let's just remove that one. Yes, I'm sure. And then we're gonna put that in here. Yeah. So that's all there. Oh, social group stuff. There. We can do that, right? Follow. Let's add an image. And then a lights. Keep. Nope. We're on this one. Trying to get it so we can get. The whole thing. All right. So we're going to put that right. And then we're going to do this. And then if we do the webcam and move it over above the top bar, that'll come through and that'll be there. Social group. Do this. And I take this one. Right over there like that. Oh, did I take it out of there? I took it out of there. What? Where's my logo? Gaming 4. My logo's gone. Yes. Copy. Paste duplicate. Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Let's see. Logo. Copy. Christmas gaming scene. And we're going to paste the reference, which that's fine. Okay with that. All right. And then Christmas and then plus image. Christmas deck one. Oh, yeah, that's right. All right. Got those in there already. That's done. Downloads. That's that. That's that. That's there. There. Always the fucking ones I want. All the ones I sit there and go, that looks cool. Let's put that one on. Nope. Screw you. Let's see. Oh. Love it. Let's. Love it. Now we just need that. My man. Yep. Perfect. Doing this, and we need the logo. And we're gonna transform, copy transform. Then we're gonna add image. We're gonna call it boom, bop, boom, bop, boom. There we are. All right. Let's do this. People playing. Announcements. Yeah, I did that. Sure, whatever. Okay, we're gonna go there. Whatever. Oh, I've got a bagel left. Ooh, Asiago. Delicious. The hell's that? Mm-hmm. Almost done. All right. We'll change this to match what we're doing. We'll do the PBA. Mm. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's my guy. Cool. Let's go bowling. That's cool. I got their wires all over the place. Be better. All right. Hmm. It's because I don't have my. Oh, that's horrible. That's my best hook. I need to get better. I need to get some better balls. Balls. All right. Okay, so this isn't that hardcore of a twisty twist. So if we do this. Ah, better. Last one was better. Ah! Oh, come now. Unless you do that. Come on. All right. Wow. That sucks. Hmm. Get it. Get it. Oh. Hmm. Let's move a little further over since we're not necessarily getting the... And then let's do this. Brooklyn? Ooh. Oh, we went on the... There we go. Brooklyn? Brooklyn. Oh, come on. That's the way to go. Nope. Ooh. Oh. Mm. Oh, I missed completely. Darn it. Oh, you whore. Oh, biscuits. Get it. Nope, too late. Fudge, man. That. Come get it. Oh, biscuits. Got the Ebonite Masker. Ooh, incoming call.
Check in, see how you're holding up out there. Word travels fast in the bowling world, and I keep hearing your name pop up in those local events. So you've done all right in the locals, but show me you can hang in competition, and then we'll talk about what comes next. Because until you can, This whole PGA.
Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, no, we're gonna go with this. Never. Skip this. All right. We're in our same stuff.
To the right on the release. Crosses over, almost got the Brooklyn strike there. Completely misses the pocket. There you see the conversion percentage on the 9-pin. 97.5% tour average. 9-pin, no problem. One more from that to 7. The 7 dropped at a 93% clip. Way right on the release.
Ah, Fisk.
In a row. To the right on the release.
Ah, come on, that was there.
Pin is converted 98% of the time. Ends up with the air ball.
That's what I'm talking about.
For the double. Picks up 7 pins. Looking for the conversion. Needs a good shot.
Straight.
Air ball on that one.
Don't smell your fingers. I don't know what you're.
Game rolling here with 2 strikes in a row.
Oh, that is not.
Knocks down 8 pins, leading the 6 and 7. The tour average on the 6-7 is only 3%. To the right on the release.
Biscuits.
That won't get it done. Misses completely.
Well, I'm gonna lose.
To the right on the release. Pins go down, leaving the 6 and 10. Professional bowlers are awfully good spare shooters and will usually convert here.
I.
Double strikes on this throw. Way right on the release. Leaves double wood. Good chance of a conversion here. Way right on the release.
What is your fucking problem? Sorry, what is your problem with saying way right on the release?
And that's 2 coming your way next.
Career hub. All right. Oh. ball shop. Let's see how much I got. $300. That's 1,000. 350. $280. All right, well, I need more money. Go again.
Welcome to New York. Glad to have you here.
All right, what the hell?
To the right on the release. Start strong with the strike. For 2 straight here.
Get.
Pins go down, leading to 3 and 6. Really good chance we'll see a conversion on this one. Look at there.
Come on.
Thought they were all going in the pit. 10 stand. Players convert the 10 pin 95% of the time. Takes care of the 10 pin there.
Oh!
For the double here. Be back here. Knocks down 8 pins, leaving the 6 and 10. Pros on tour will generally pick this one up. That goes into the gutter. You don't see the pros do that very often, but it can happen when you're flirting with a line out by the edge.
Sugar.
See the numbers on the 1-2-10. Needs a great shot here.
Oh, you went around it?
To the right on the release. That shot could not have been better. A nice release on that shot, and the result was perfect. Struck in the last frame, looking for the double here.
Get you.
Picks up 9 pins with just the 8 remaining. You see how often the 8 pin is converted? 95.8% tour average.
And of course, fucking straight.
Way right on the release. 9 count there, leaving just the 1. Looking for a good shot right here. Converts it easily. Stands. That's it from Nets 1. Another great match. They know these lanes. They trust their game, and they're ready to roll. That's all it takes to make things. To the right on the release. Exactly what you want. Looking for the double. pin conversion, 96%.
Or you just fucking...
It's a swing and a miss. To the right on the release. Just misses the 10. 95% is your tour average for the 10 pin. To the right on the release. Oh, and that's a
Little to the right on the release. Little to the right on the release. A little to the right on the release.
punch the work. Depends on that one. Trying to get the train rolling here with 2 strikes in a row. Pulled it on that one and went Brooklyn. This one can definitely be picked up. No problem there. Got a strike on.
Brooklyn. Come on. Come on, man.
What you're trying to do here is roll the ball into the gap between the 2 pins. Try to clean it up here.
Baloney. Oh. How's about that? Let's come over here. Let's go. Oh, wait, we can just do the whole thing. Bam, there you go. Seeing how yeah. Need to work on one with all that.
Good chance of making this one.
Of course, I missed the head top pin. All right. Come on, man.
It doesn't get any easier than the 4 pin for the professionals on the tour. The rookie has won this match. The pressure's gone. Time for some victory rolls. To the right on the release.
You need a fucking a better word. A little to the right on the release. Hmm.
Late nights, practice sessions, endless frames. This
Give it a second to. There we go.
way right on the release.
Well, at least we're saying way right on the release instead of.
Looking for the spare here.
Nope.
There's an open frame. Good. Count there with just the 6 remaining. 6 pin goes down 97.5% of the time. 6 pin goes down.
Come on now.
Leaving the 4 and 6. Now, pins there, leaving the 3. The graphic shows the 3 pin gets picked up 96% of the time. He's up the 3.
Brooklyn. Get it.
Results now are just academic. Looking for 2 in a row.
Come on.
Picks up 9 pins with just the 4 remaining. 4 pin, it's almost a sure thing. Picked up 98% of the time. He's up the 4 pin there. Show that. Thank you for joining us here for the New York State Championships, and we'll see you next time.
Hammer, purple hammer. Ooh, old school red. Let's go. Let's view the ball collection. Ooh. Add it to the arsenal. Yeah. $410. Continue the career. Event map. All right. So duck pin. There's a sweep. We can do the head-to-head. Let's do the head-to-head.
Pleased to have you with us today. I'm Rob Stone. He's the Hall of Famer, Randy Peterson. Our bowlers already proven they're the best in their state.
Oh.
To the right on the release.
Ah.
Down the lane in a hurry. It was a full rack attack once the ball got to the pins.
Come on.
Clean it up here. Went for it, but could not pick it up. Picks up 8 pins, leading to 4 and 7. The graphic shows the conversion percentage. Way right on the release.
That's the same thing I do normally. Mm.
Way right on the release. Takes out 8 pins, leaving the 1 and 2. Now, try to convert here. Way right on the release. It cannot take. Way right on the release. Didn't make it in the pocket. Went light. Take a look at the tour average here. Decent shot at making this one. Way right on the release. Oh man, a big miss. You just can't do that. It just kills your chances. Way right on the release. 9. The 9 pin is almost always picked up. To the right on the release. 9 pin. Nope. Leaving the one, and these final balls are just a bow on top. 4 pin is converted 98% of the time. Way right on the release.
Way right on the release. Just a little bit right on the release. Way right on the release. Way right. God damn it. Picking something else. Just, I don't need to hear that every time.
Takes out 9 pins, leaving just the 6. Doesn't get much easier than this. 6 pin is picked up 97.5% of the time. 6 pin goes through. pins with that. That's it on that one. Looking for a streak here, 2 in a row. Now, my friend, try and make it 3 in a row here. To the right on the release. Takes out 8 pins, leaving the 2 and 4. As our graphic showed, the pros will usually make this one. This there. Pins go down, leaving the 6 and 10. You see the conversion percentage there, not too difficult for the pros. Picks up 9 pins with just the 4 remaining. It doesn't get any easier than the 4 pin for the professionals on the tour. Problem takes care of the 4 pin. Brain rolling here with 2 strikes in a row.
What the?
Takes out 8 pins, leaving the 4 and 9. This is makeable. Very difficult shot.
Yes!
The rookie has won this match. Already the victor results now are just academic. I like the chances of a conversion here. Pins, leaving the 4 and 7. Professional bowlers are awfully good spare shooters and will usually convert here. Way right on the release.
What?
Big mistake there. Those are the kind of mistakes that can cost you the win. Now we've reached the end of it.
Oh, okay. No tap. Okay.
Looking to keep it going here with 2 in a row. Back opening again. He finished a 3-bagger here. Hit for 3. Working off 3 strikes in a row. Info has been delivered. Looking for a 5-bagger now. Already with the 5-bagger and looking to keep it going. The pins keep falling. I mean, I don't want to jinx anyone, and I know it's early, but it has that perfect feel. Another strike. This is what it looks like when everything comes together. Looking to extend the strike streak to 8 here. The level of focus is tremendous right now. Still perfect. 8 in a row. Going for the 9-bagger now. Still perfect to 9. Now is when you want to keep focus and not get ahead of yourself. Still have a little work to do. Working off a 10-bagger to open up here. This is a pro on top of their game. 11 in a row now, and the pressure is on. This is making my palms sweat. One strike away from perfection. Wow. Feel it.
Ah!
That's the end of round one. Stay with us for round two coming up next. Start here. Open for two in a row. Working off a double now. Strong here early. Now 3 for 3. Good streak going right now. One more run, you get to say your favorite word. Yeah, hambo to start. Already with the hambo. Looking for 5 now. Another 5 in a row to start. Going for the 6-pack here. To the right of the release. Open the 6-pack. 6 in a row to start this one. Looking for another strike. This just keeps getting better and better.
No.
Leaving the 6-9-10. Very makeable cleanup here. Got the spare. To the right of the release.
Come on now.
Good chance of a conversion here. Double strikes on this one. Enough of the head pin. Puts them all in the pit. Struck the last 2 times and will try to get 3 in a row here. For the turkey. Matt Hand on this throw. And who doesn't love him?
Oh.
Missed it. Missed it.
There's a decent one.
A double here.
Go there.
Looking for the triple here.
Come on.
Boom! To the face. This one is very big.
Not like it ending.
When you lose concentration.
Or rush.
Crosses over. It's a big break. Trying to get a streak going here. Crosses over. Yeah. Triple struck. Sometimes you get a little lucky. Now with 2 strikes in a row. Will we see 3? We just might. Another beauty right there. Looking to add the hand bone to the menu here.
Oh. Okay, well, that still counts because it's no tap.
In what? Indoor sports. I'm gonna take 10 pins bowling for a 100 drop. Really on the roll now. Yeah, this is just filthy. Going for the 6-pack.
Oh,
Down 8 pins, leaving the 3 and 6. Really good chance we'll see a conversion on this one. To the right of the release. Can't go too good. Yeah, no doubt. Nothing more frustrating than missing each pairs. Down 8 pins, leaving the 4 and 7. Pros on tour will generally pick this one up. Way right on the release. Converts there nicely.
finish off with one last one. Yes, we can. 772.
As much as we did. So long, folks.
Ooh, Surge. Qualified.
Damn, kid. The main focus here is the PGA Pro Tour qualifier. The road.
What? Yeah. I want to do that. Intermission. Bathroom break. All right. Hello, we're back. We got about half an hour. We're gonna play this one. Huh, okay. Let's go right here. We'll go here. Yeah, like that.
Seven count there. Looking for the conversion. Needs a good shot. Starts things off with a spare.
Shit.
Pins go down. Now, try to convert here. To the right on the release. Get the spare. Good job. Kyle, lucky hooking to string it together here with 2 in a row.
quiet.
Takes out 8 pins, leaving 1 and 3. Looking for the spare here.
Oh.
Down 7 pins there. Looking for a good shot right here. To the right on the release. Missed it, missed it. Yeah, I think that was just lack of concentration. Picks up 7 pins, leaving the 1-3-9. Try to clean it up here. Converts that one. Only 7 pins in the pit. Looking for the conversion. Needs a good shot. Way right on the release. Did not get the spare. Yep, bad release on that one. Drops it over. Yeah, broken strike.
Oh. Did you see it smoke?
Picks up 9 pins with just the 8 remaining. See how often the 8 pin is converted, 95.8% tour average. Pin goes down for the trying to get the train rolling here with 2 strikes in a row.
This is a 4. Close.
Knocks down 9 pins there, leaving the 6. 6 pin drop over 97% of the time. 6 pin and it goes down.
Good Lord.
6 pins. That does it for game 1. Game 2.
It's plastic. All right, we've got 5.9. So we go here and here. Touch that. And that. There we go.
Way right on the release. Takes out 9 pins, leaving just the 6. 6 pin is usually no sweat, converted over 97% of the time.
Come on.
9 pin should not be a problem. 9 pin, no problem.
6.2.
To the right on the release. 6 down. Looking for the spare here.
Yep.
Oh man, a big
7.5.
95% of the time. One to the back of the pit.
Come on, there it is.
Screaming across and took out that last pin. Looking for two in a row.
Come.
And that pin will not go down. 95% of the time is how often pro bowlers clean up the 10. Home the 10 pin. To the right on the release. Huge break. Looking to get on the streak now, punting two in a row. To the right on the release.
Come on.
One and went broke. 9 pin is almost always picked up. 9 pin, no problem.
Well, that's shitty.
Clean it up here. Way right on the release. Got that one back. What a show that was. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Let's see the ball collection. That's a 4.5. Oh. Bots. Ooh. Those are the new ones I got. Yep, I like these. Glasses. Nope. Miscellaneous. Nope. Strike Derby. Let us go.
Hello and welcome to the Strike Derby Challenge. I'm Rob Stone and I'll be covering all the action here. Another Strike Derby, and this time it feels like someone's about to break a record. This isn't just about power, it's about heat. When the pressure starts cooking.
Strike Derbies. 6. Yeah, 6 is the one.
The strike started off. There's a nice shot and a nice result. Looking to keep it going here with 2 in a row.
Oh. All right.
No worries, there's plenty more firepower in that arm. 30 seconds in, and the pressure is on. Take a look at the 10-pin body of the pin. That's not just any pin. That's the jackpot pin right there.
The fudge.
But like, way right on the release. Wide on that one. One minute down, one to go. Things are heating up. Look who showed up to the party. The gold pin is in. That's your money. Let's get spicy. Brings a score up to 5 points with that one. Looking for another strike now to get that drop.
Come now.
30 seconds left. It's time to lock in and finish this out. Just a little off the mark there. Just gotta shake off and go to the next one. A little late on that one. That's why it didn't make it to the pocket. Two in a row. 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's it. Straight after that night, we've reached the conclusion of this Strike Derby Challenge, and what a competition it was. So long, folks.
Let's go for it. I mean, why not?
Welcome to this special Bear Challenge telling. Players convert the 10 pin 95% of the time. For spare. See how often the 10 pin is converted 95% of the time. No problem here in the first. As our graphic showed, pros will usually make this one. Taps it out for an easy 25-point game. Good chance of a conversion here. Couldn't pick up that one. They'll lose out on those 25 points. Looking for the spare here.
Okay.
Good, solid effort here to convert. Doesn't click and picks it up for a quick finish. Looking for the conversion, needs a good shot. To the right on the release. That was easy, but they made it look smooth. 75 on the board. Not an impossible cleanup here. That won't get it done. Misses completely. Now, try to convert here. Way right on the release.
Bitch.
Took the risk, but couldn't bring it home.
115.
Looking for a good shot right
He
here.
gets this.
You want that one? You need that one, but it just didn't cooperate. That concludes our coverage of this Make That Spare Challenge. Thank you for being here.
Make that spare. Let's see what we got in my balls. Ooh, the vibe is a 7. We're gonna change it with pitch black. The hustle. Yeah, change with that.
Professional bowlers are awfully good spare shooters and will usually convert here. It's the spare early here. The 7-pin on that one. 7-pin is no gimme, but still picked up 93% of the time. To the right on the release. Picks up 8 pins into the 1 and 2. Looking for a good shot right here. Pick up.
Get down. Come on.
Takes out 8 pins, leaving the 6 and 7. 3% conversion rate is the tour average for the 6-7. Way right on the release. That's a swing and a miss. Takes out 8 pins, leaving the 4 and 7. This one is very making.
Gosh.
Knocks down 9 pins there, leaving the 6. 6-pin drop over 97% of the time. 6-pin.
Are you kidding me?
It's only covered 9% of the time on the tour. Go down, leaving the 4 and 6. Now, try to convert here.
Oh, God.
Open after.
Get there.
Takes
Well,
out 9
that
pins,
seemed
leaving just
weird.
the 4. It's almost a sure thing. Picked up 98% of the time. Way right on the release.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Cleans up the 4 pin there. Pins go down, leaving the 6 and may not have the resume. Struck in the last frame, looking for the double here. Two frames. It's a 3-0. Knocks down 9 pins there, leaving the 6. 6-pin should not be a problem with a 97.5% conversion rate on the tour.
All right. We have to.
Great effort. Only 3 pins go down. Looking for the conversion, needs a good shot. Runner-up win. Going through the pits.
All right, y'all. We need to hurry up and finish up this 20.
It said no. 7-pin dropped 93% of the time.
Are you kidding me? That was fine.
That's an open frame. Pins go down, leaving the 6 and 9. Now, try to convert here. Works it easily. 4-10, yuck. Yeah, your best shot here is to just barely flip the left side of the 4-pin and slide it into the 10. This one converted just 4.5% of the time on the tour.
I did clip.
Nope, open frame. No shot there.
Brooklyn? Yeah, nice. Biscuits.
That was on the nose. Try to clean it up here. Way right on the release. Failed to convert and left it open. It was a nice effort. Just didn't put the ball where it needed to be.
Well, thanks for that expert analysis.
That, my friend, was a nice three for two straight here.
Oh, Jesus.
Hope you get a favorable bounce. Very low conversion rate on this one.
I didn't even come close. I won, though. All right, one more. One last one.
Pins go down, leaving the 4 and 8. Looking for the spare here.
How the
Could not
fuck?
convert the spare. The 6 and 10. You see the conversion percentage there. Not too difficult for the pros. There it is. Wide of target. Couldn't quite get the corner on that one. Looking for a good shot right here.
What the deuce?
Brutal numbers on this one. And the pins do not go down. Yeah, your ball placement has to be perfect, and that's not what we saw right there.
Ooh.
8 pins go down, leaving the 6 and 10. I like the chances of a conversion here. It's it up. To the left on the release.
What the fuck, man?
To convert here, you want to hit the left side of the 5-pin and knock it into the 10. Not that difficult if you're accurate. Looking for the conversion needs a good shot. To the right on the release.
Yes. Oh, that went way right.
Picks up 8 pins. The 1 and 10. Looking for the conversion needs a good shot. To the right on the release.
Oh, that fragga, fragga, fragga. Brooklyn.
A double here. To the right on the release. That, my friend, was a nice structure last time. Going to try to get 3 in a row here.
Oh.
How often the 10 pin is taken care of. The rookie has won this match. That scoreboard tells the story. This match is over. We're just wrapping things up.
Ah, at least I got that one.
10, still standing.
We won. Yo.
You punched your ticket to the room. Don't think you're there yet. Now you've got to prove that you really.
All right, we'll go to the point grab later. All right, y'all. Thanks for stopping by and everything. I am going to go and try to take care of